What is this? What is this? Lunce's list. What is this? Oh. What is this? What is this? Lunce's list. Lunce's list. Oh. Lunce's list of five. Lunce's list of five. Wow. Lunce's list of five. Lunce's list of five.
John, what was the mindset going into Lunce's list this time around?
All right, so you laid a few ground rules. Sometimes you'll do this with this list. It actually makes it easier when you lay the ground rules out, so I don't mess anything up. So I can include sequels of sequels. So, I'd say from a film like, Harry Potter, let's say. So I loved all those movies, so that's not going to make it. But like Harry Potter 1, 2 through 7 could qualify for this list technically. Each spot must be a different film series. There were actually a few that I hit multiple within a series, and I kind of had to choose, well, which one of these was actually more disappointing? These are also not worse. There are a lot of movies that are considered bad, but like, hey, it's a guilty pleasure for me because I like the franchise, or something that would probably pop up on a lot of lists, but it wasn't disappointing for me. Or it was like, well, I didn't expect much from it to begin with, so it wasn't super disappointing just because it was bad. And then counting box office isn't necessarily the way to go. Obviously, that can affect the overall opinion of a movie if it has a really bad box office. But the bad thing with this is I started looking through a few lists and started thinking about, what about this movie, what about this movie? Is there's a lot of sequels out there that people say are bad because they were, technically a sequel, but it was a straight to DVD thing that you never really saw. Or for me, the biggest one is horror movies. I've seen Jaws a million times, and I've never seen a single sequel to it because Jaws itself was like a moment, and it's one of the things you have to watch, but I don't ever care to see Jaws 2 through however many there were. Halloween, same thing. Seen the original Halloween a bunch of times. I'm never going to watch another Halloween movie.
The Jaws sequels are a sore spot for me because while I will defend Jaws 2 as being very watchable, Jaws 3 is very painful for me, and Jaws 4 is maybe the worst movie ever made if you look at the finer details of that.
You didn't see Madam Web?
You didn't see Jaws 4.
Which I guess could Madam Web be considered a sequel to like Venom and Morbius? Are the same universe? Anyway.
Just imagine the powers that Madam Web had, but the shark had them. That's the way I would describe Jaws 4, The Revenge.
Run around blind, I see the future.
Jaws the Revenge, the shark's it's like premeditated.
Oh, yeah.
He's hunting down the whole family.
Yeah. And it's like, well, why don't they just fly away to a Caribbean island and get away from the shark? They do, and the shark beats them there somehow. And the shark has made... I believe the poster said this time it's personal. I believe it said that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, and this isn't even the same shark from the first one. Let's not get into Jaws 4.
How do you know it's personal?
Let's go to number 5 on Lunce's list to get this thing started. These are the most disappointing movie sequels since 1990. Anything pre-1990 that would be a disappointing sequel for you guys? Anything pre-1990? Do you want to throw out there?
Caddyshack 2 was pre-1990.
Oh, yeah.
There was a bunch. Oh, God.
Oh, number 5.
I have not seen one of these.
Fast X.
So...
You should know John Lunsford is a huge Fast and the Furious fan.
Huge Fast and Furious
Well, he's
fan.
human. So.
Was this the go-to Fast and the Furious movie that you had to pick, or was it in contention with something else?
For me, this was the go-to because this is the most recent one that just came out, I guess, last year. And all right, so the Fast and Furious saga. Here's a quick history. I've already gone through a whole history on the next round. I can tell you liked when I did that. But 1 through 7 was when Paul Walker was alive. 7 was the one where Paul Walker died. They finished the movie. Had an incredible send-off. Man tears all over the place as See You Again's playing in the background.
It's been a long with you, my friend. Okay, sorry. I was trying to set the scene.
That didn't mean sing it, but anyway, you know the song I'm talking about. Perfect ending to the franchise. They could have just stopped right there and not a single person would have complained, except the people who actually make the money from it because they wanted to, milk that cash cow as much as they possibly could. And the Fast and Furious movies, no matter what you think, they make money. So we're going to keep going with it. They went with it without Paul Walker. By the way, Paul Walker's still alive in this series. He still is technically alive in this series, even after Fast X. But he's just not there, obviously. But they've done a terrible job trying to figure out that whole story because, hey, there's some stuff going down, and we got to get you to come help us heist this whatever is going on. So we're going to get your wife to come. You stay home with the kids. You're the one that's been doing this the whole time, but we're going to randomly throw your wife in, which is Vin Diesel's sister, and it's a whole thing. But
can you tell this has personally afflicted John in a way to where he's lost for words?
Fast X is just too unbelievable.
Sure.
Okay. Finally got to that point where even John's like, no thanks.
So you bet, like, Too Fast, Too Furious wasn't great. It was Paul Walker, and it was the introduction of Tyrese and Ludacris to the series. Vin Diesel was not in. It's the only one he's not in.
Luda!
But then the third one was like, hey, we'll do Tokyo Drift. Actually, wasn't that bad of a movie. It fits in the story. They've done a good job narratively fitting it all in up to 7. Then with the eighth one, we've had the same villain, the same kind of background villain for the last 3. And it's been Charlize Theron's character, Cypher. And it was fine in the 8th one. They should have killed her off and moved on to another one like they do with most of them. She was in the 9th one. She's still in the 10th one somehow. Jason Momoa is now the bad guy, which he's okay. But the problem is they left it on a cliffhanger. And I don't want to spoil it. But they left it on a really weird cliffhanger that I'll tell y'all off because I know none of y'all are ever going to watch it, of why it made the list. But then they added Brie Larson, surprisingly, as a relative that you've never seen before. They did the same with John Cena in the last movie. Hey, John Cena is Vin Diesel's brother. You never knew that until now. He's done all this stuff through the last 20 years, and you've never heard of him. They're trying too hard now with all of this. They left it on a terrible cliffhanger going into what's supposed to be part 2. They said they're going to do 3 parts, but then Vin Diesel got hit with a sexual assault scandal to where I don't know if they'll ever make another one now. So it left on this awful cliffhanger, and that's basically where the series is going to end.
Wow. Because
they can't do another one now because it's
and this is
only can't touch him now.
This is only number 5 on his pain scale. This is number 5, 1 being the most painful.
Only reason it's number 5 is because it's not like 1 through 9 were great. I like 1 through 7, and then 8 was like and then 9 was a little and then this is one that's really like bad. That it's kind of been going downhill. So I've kind of expected it.
I'm wondering how many movies he chose just because the title was easy to write, and I wonder if we're going to see that over and over and over again.
My number 1 is not super easy to write.
Let's go with number 4 on Lunce's list as John continues to tell us about those 5 most disappointing movie sequels since the year 1990. So for the past 33, 34 years, basically. All right. Number 4.
World War 84.
World War 80. Oh, Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, okay.
That's how they marketed it, so I feel like I can write it.
That's fair, but it took us a second to like. And I went with Rocky. I trusted him. That was the worst part of it. I'm just like, oh, Rocky knows what he's talking about.
A lot of them.
Wonder Woman 1984. This was a movie that I saw on HBO Max because it was one of those that was day and day released. And
I actually did too.
Patty Jenkins had so much success with the first Wonder Woman. Patty Jenkins was behind this one as well, right?
I think so, yes.
I have to look that up. But.
So here's the thing. The first Wonder Woman is considered by most to be one of the best, if not the best, DCEU film, at least of a solo film.
It's a high mountain, isn't it?
I know it's not real high there, but I would probably consider it third for me overall in the DCEU, but still probably one of the few. I'd probably stop there of giving it positive grades. But then you had Pedro Pascal, who at the time was starting his ascension. He wasn't where he is now, but he was starting his ascension.
It was good, but it could be better.
Yeah.
How was that?
Terrible villain.
Okay.
He's not a very good villain. He's a great face, not a good heel. The 80s vibe, the whole vibe of like the trailer and everything, as much as we love the Midnight, which is the whole 80s vibe, it's like, I'm in. Let's do it. This is going to be perfect. And it was terrible. Kristen Wiig was not good as one of the villains.
Cheetah.
The way they brought Chris Pine back was incredibly stupid. Everything about it was just a bad movie. It was horribly done. It's like everything you liked, we're just going to go and throw it in the toilet. And then there's a new movie, Wonder Woman 84.
I mean, it stalled out Wonder Woman altogether, really.
Yeah, which is one of the few things the DCU had going for it. Oh, by the way, you killed one of the things you just had going for you. It's done. End of story. It was so disappointing.
I don't know what else needs to be said.
Yes.
Didn't it come out Christmas Day? I remember it coming out on a Christmas Day release.
Sure.
Let me see here.
It was definitely a December release.
December 25th, 2020.
There you go.
That's when it released, and the director on it, Patty Jenkins. Hurt her stock too.
Who had a Star Wars movie in the works and I think does not anymore.
Yeah.
There are a lot that's happened to a lot of people.
But I think it would have been looked at even more harshly had it not been a straight to streaming release. Because most people will be like, okay, I'm going to stream this. Oh, it wasn't very good. Okay, whatever. But when you pay money for the babysitter, when you go out and you buy all the concessions and you sit down, you have a different level of expectation of this thing better deliver. And it actually benefited, I think, from not having that certain level of hype around it.
Probably so.
All right, let's go to number 3 on Lunce's list. Once again, Wonder Woman 1984 made $170 million, cost $200 million to make. That's not even including how much it took to market the film. So not a success there in Wonder Woman 1984. Number 3, Rise of
Skywalker.
I am surprised that you put this on there, and I am proud of you for doing it. But I remember calling you after seeing this film, and you were you weren't upset about it. You were very much like, they made some choices. They did some things. It's over. We can move on.
Now, once again, this is not a list of 5 films I hate, 5 sequels I hate. This is films that are disappointing.
I hate this movie.
I don't hate Rise of Skywalker like most people do. However, there were pieces there with Force Awakens and even The Last Jedi that didn't pay off. The whole thing was a train wreck, and it's hurt Star Wars overall. That's why it's disappointing more than anything, is that it hurt the overall opinion of Star Wars in general to everybody, because now anything that Disney does with Star Wars, everybody immediately goes in with, I don't know if this is going to be any good, but yeah, we'll try it. Even a show like Andor, huge praise, but you go in like, I don't know, we'll see. Mandalorian, huge praise. I don't know. You go into it kind of with that, I don't really know, because it's a Disney version of Star Wars. And overall, it was just a disappointing film. It didn't do what Disney should do, because Disney, by the way, at the same time, is ending the Infinity Saga, which is one of the greatest, stretches of movies ever and the highest grossing franchise ever. And then they fumble the ball with Rise of Skywalker. One
of the greatest movie announcements of all time was Rise of Skywalker, because they announced it with Palpatine coming out to make the announcement. And
I love the trailer for it too. The music in the trailer was incredible.
Play it again. I remember that happening. Was it D23 that happened?
I think so.
And people were losing their minds over it. They thought, okay, Star Wars is going to get back on track. You had Lando in there. I mean, it was supposed to be a return to form. You were bringing back J.J. Abrams, and all it was an apology letter to everyone that hated Episode 8, while also creating new haters. And they never explain. You bring back Palpatine from, if you remember in Return of the Jedi, the Death Star blows up after he's thrown down into a vat of death anyway. And they bring him back, and they just never he came back. They just never thought, we need to probably get into how this guy showed back up. He's back, and you need to know he's back, and that's it. Well, I mean, if you read the novel, Tim, you'll understand. I don't want to have to read the novel. I'm going to see the movie. Explain to me how Palpatine has come back from this and why he would face any challengers after what happened to him at Return of the Jedi. I hate this movie. I'm very angry with this movie. This movie questions the intelligence of everyone. And if we're looking at an era of Dune right now where it's rewarding intelligence, Rise of Skywalker absolutely made you dumber for having seen it. And I despise this movie. John, this is Lunce's list, not Tim's list, but this was Tim's rant.
I'm sad this isn't number one, no.
Y'all talking about giving the keys. They should just give the keys to Star Wars to Vin Diesel.
You got half of that right. They should give the keys to someone, but not to Vin Diesel, I don't think.
Okay.
One of their names starts, it's DV, not VD. Okay.
Anything
Wow, that was
else
a lot. That was a lot.
Go to number 2 on Lunce's list.
All right. Should have put that number 1. It's going to be disappointing now.
I hate Rise of Skywalker, but I'll tell you this, I love Realtor Jim Wilson. I do. And I love when people are dedicated to what they do. That's Realtor Jim Wilson for you. He's all in for his clients and the real estate moves that they wish to make. When buying or selling a home, remember our friend Jim Wilson with Location Real Estate. Jim prioritizes honesty and transparency with all of his clients. He's still active in the U.S. military. He wants the absolute best for you. Jim Wilson cares about you not only during the home buying or selling process, but every day after. He's an advocate for you. Contact Realtor Jim Wilson with Location Real Estate at 205-329-4758. That's 329-4758, or visit jimwilson.locationre.com. That is location with a K. All right, John, number 2, Zoolander 2. Okay.
Zoolander, when it came out, was a moment.
Correct.
It was a hysterical movie.
Yeah.
It had a really good cast in it. And it's one of those that I'd put in there when you think back to like, hey, what funny movies I've seen in the theater that were kind of an experience like a Dodgeball was or an Anchorman was.
Napoleon Dynamite.
I'd throw Zoolander in there too. Will Ferrell in Zoolander as well. But then it's like, hey, that was pretty good. It's been a while. We need another hit. Let's go get all the same people and let's get a ton of celebrities. And they spent the whole time chasing celebrities around and then found nothing for them to do whatsoever. Brought them in. None of it worked. It jumped the shark in a lot of different ways. That it was one of the single, now of movies I hate, this is one of the single worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And it was so disappointing because I really did like the first one. I thought it was hysterical, and it just, fell absolutely flat on its face.
I've never seen Zoolander 2, so
Neither
I
have
couldn't.
Seen Zoolander. From the trailer, I was like, this is not going to be good. And they also waited 20 years after the original? Like, it's just too much time had passed. Just like when they brought back Bill and Ted. I mean, come on.
Comedy sequels with that big of a time gap typically don't pay off.
People age a little bit, and it's hard to show.
It's hard to bring the band back together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wild Stallions.
I'm just surprised Zoolander 2 is ranked
That was a
number
little
2.
disappointing too, by the way.
Oh, I had no interest in that either. It's just sad. I didn't want to see.
I did only because
Keanu Reeves couldn't do the Ted voice anymore.
It was one of those HBO Max day-and-day releases or whatever, and so I watched it. It was very disappointing. Not bad enough to make the list, but it was disappointing.
Zoolander 2 is up there because you were going in with more expectation than these other films?
Yeah, because I really, really did like the first one. I mean, I thought it was really funny, and I thought it worked well. The cast worked well together. But it's like every weird thing about Zoolander and all the funny little clips you all say, the Derek Zoolander School for Kids That Can't Read Good, stuff like that. It's like, how can we take that and make it 10 times worse and more obscene and throw 5 celebrities in there to have some part of it? I mean, it has 1 billion people in it, but it just makes absolutely no sense.
I should know this. Is it Blue Steel, which is the
look?
Can we all give our best Blue Steel right now? I'm going to do mine first.
Oh.
I don't think I can beat that.
It's like you're eating a warhead.
Tyler, give me some Blue Steel back there. Okay. All right. A little bit more.
I don't want to do this.
Good. Okay, we won't do this anymore.
Uncomfortable.
That was more disappointing than Zoolander 2 somehow. All right. Number 1 on Lunce's list, I'm ready to get to. I wish I had had 5 minutes prepared on Zoolander 2, but unfortunately I do not. I'm surprised that made the list, especially in the 2 spot. The most disappointing movie sequel since 1990, according to John Lunsford, is number 1 on Lunce's list. I cannot see a thing. Can anyone see anything? Spoil it for me. I hope it's
the greatest 90s movie of all time, Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Is that really what's being written up there?
Yes.
I'm surprised that Lunsford went with this.
I think so.
Okay. We're going to trust your writing here. Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I would have never in a million years guessed that this would have been the movie you chose specifically.
Johnny Cage.
How did this make number 1 on Lunce's list?
All right, I'll be honest. It's been a hot minute since I've watched this because it was so bad. But so Mortal Kombat was a moment as well of in our childhoods, 1, 2, and 3, especially 3, being such a good game that everybody played. You had to have it for your console. You played it at every arcade. And then the first movie comes out. And I like the first movie, okay. It kind of brought it down. Here's the thing. I don't like, and I'm sure we'll have this discussion a lot when it comes to movies. I'm not a big fan of violence in general. And Mortal Kombat's a very violent game, but cartoony back in the day to where it's like, okay, it's not as bad as it is now. You see some of the fatalities nowadays, and it's a little rough. And I haven't seen the new one because I know the new one's going to be like over the top, like gory, and I just don't want to watch it. But the first one that came out was like, it's not that bad when it comes to violence. It tones that down. It just tells more of the story that you don't really get a lot of if you're just playing, hey, I want to be Scorpion versus Sub-Zero. And then it's like, okay, the first one worked out pretty good. Let's make Annihilation. It's worse than a fan-made movie would ever be. The CGI in it is absolutely abysmal because I think it was 97, and it's like every movie from the late 90s, early 2000s, and I would throw the prequels in there as well for Star Wars. It's like we have the capability to technically do it, so we might as well try, and it is absolutely awful. Every little bit of it, I was pulling scenes up watching how bad it actually is. The green screen, you can see like certain parts of hair get lost in the green screen on every time a person gets punched in the face or something. Like the morphing of Reptile in it is the worst thing I've ever seen. It is so incredibly bad. And what makes it even worse is that not long after that, you start getting actual fan-made films that are infinitely better than a big budget movie was. I mean, Mortal Kombat Legacy, which was a YouTube series that came out, was incredible. And you see, that's what just, some fans did on YouTube, basically. And the actual studios can't get it right. I'm sure the new one's great. I don't want to touch it because A, I know it's probably too violent for me. And B, the last movie I saw was so bad, I can't jump into it. I know it's different. Just not my thing. I'm not buying into it. Mortal Kombat Annihilation, the absolute worst sequel ever.
Tyler, you're backing John up fully here.
100%. Annihilation is unwatchable. So here's one thing that they do in the movie. I have no idea why it's in there. to travel around the center of the earth. They have this like wooden ball that 2 people can ride in, and it's powered by the inside winds of the earth or something
I'll take your
like
word
that.
for it.
It is so dumb. It's not in any of the games before the making of that movie, nor since. I don't know why it's in there. And also, John's right about Reptile. The CGI for Reptile looks like. Have you seen the Eiffel 65 video, Blue Dabba Dee?
You got John.
Yeah, I know
Broke
exactly
John
what you're talking
Lunsford.
about.
It is that quality CGI the whole way.
And the problem is, so like the original roster from Mortal Kombat's not that big, and then as games go, it grows. So it's like every possible character we can, because I think it tried to go off the roster from Mortal Kombat 3. Every single possible character we can throw in there, we're going to throw in there, whether it works or not. Hey, you want Reptile in there? Let's throw him in there. Hey, you want Sindel in there? Let's throw her in there. Hey, you want Motaro in there? Let's throw him in there. Absolutely awful. The guy that plays, I think it's Motaro. I pulled a clip up. He looks so freaking nerdy to be like this big dude. It's awful. It's the worst cast. It's everything about it's terrible. It's awful. It's awful, awful, awful.
Also, they recast, I think, 3 or 4 of the main characters between the original Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation. So.
I know Raiden's different because he's like the ringleader of everybody. It's a completely different person.
Just to be clear, for this list, the sequels and the worst sequels, the original has to be good.
I like the original okay.
Okay.
As a kid watching it was like 95. I was 8.
These movies were never good. Even the one that was the day-and-day release on HBO Max, the latest Mortal Kombat movie that came out, I did not enjoy. It was not very good. Can I throw one out that maybe me and you can bond over? I think
Please.
John will too.
Street Fighter.
Alien Covenant. Because Prometheus laid the groundwork.
It's one of those I just didn't want to see
Prometheus
because
was very underrated. I loved Prometheus.
I do too.
I did too.
And then Covenant, I was so excited about Covenant. I didn't like Danny McBride's character. I didn't like anything about Covenant. I was like, I
was
left.
dumb.
It's terrible. Terrible movie.
What made
like
Prometheus work
Fassbender,
for
all that
me
stuff.
was it got away from being. I mean, it has plenty of horror elements to it, but it's more of just like a good alien movie. Like, I don't mean alien like the franchise, just a good like
Sci-fi stuck in space.
yeah.
Things are going bad. Oh my gosh, what's going on?
Works great. And then it's
And it's
like
worked out one of the most uncomfortable scenes in movie history
Yeah.
with her having to cut out.
my wife brings it up as a thing. She can't watch it. It doesn't bother me like a lot of the violent stuff does.
She had to staple her stomach too.
But she did. But like
It was tough.
then I see Alien come. I didn't want to go see it because I could tell number one they're trying to return to horror because it's like that's too sci-fi. We just need to get back to straight horror. So I didn't want to go watch it for that. But then when I see Danny McBride on Eastbound and Down and Righteous Gemstones and anything funny he does, incredible. Danny McBride in horror, I don't know because I didn't go see the new Halloweens and I'm not going to go see the new Halloweens to see if he's a good writer for it or whatever he did.
Newsflash, he's not.
The minute I see him pop up in Alien Covenant, it's like I don't care if he's playing a straight person or not, whether he's trying to be funny or not. I don't want to go see this. It just looks stupid, and I don't want to go see it.
Oh, it was so disappointing.
Well, also, the Prometheus had discount Tom Hardy. What's that guy's name?
No, not Michael Fassbender. I mean, they did have him, but
The girl's boyfriend.
Discount Tom Hardy. I don't know who Discount Tom Hardy is, but I'll have to think about that. You look
Could
it
it
up,
have
John.
been Michael J. White?
Sure.
I don't know. That guy, 7399, has a list of 5 that I think is pretty strong. Independence Day 2, Independence Day Resurgence, we call it.
Logan Marshall Green.
Yeah.
That's his name.
I like to call it Independence Day Regurgence. That is Independence Day 2. Son of the
That's an honorable
Mask.
mention.
Son of the Mask. Terminator 3. Oh my gosh, coming off of 2 and 3 was going to be huge.
I didn't mind 3. It's not as good as obviously as the original 2, but
when Schwarzenegger was getting into politics and was running for governor, and
I just kind of like 4 too.
Spider-Man 3 with the Toby series where
I thought about it, but not super disappointing.
it was very disappointing at the time. Made tons of money, very disappointing. And he says Joe Dirt too. Everybody's got to have one of those where they're looking personally forward to something.
I didn't mind Joe Dirt, but I had no desire to ever watch the second one.
John, what almost made this list? Is there anything? Because I've got one that I am shocked did not make the list.
So my one MCU movie that I was going to include the whole MCU as a franchise was Thor: The Dark World. That was an honorable mention. X-Men: Dark Phoenix was an honorable mention because Phoenix could be an incredible character. I thought Phoenix, once the Disney Fox sale happened, I thought Phoenix would be incredible next saga, like ultimate villain that they could do something with, but they screwed it up with Dark Phoenix. Independence Day Resurgence was on there. I'm a Vin Diesel guy, so I like Triple X. The Triple X they did with Ice Cube after that was absolutely awful. And then the one I asked you if I could count franchises that is kind of a reboot, but it's still part of the overall franchise. And I was going to throw the Karate Kid they did with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan in there. I hated that movie. And I'd consider it a sequel because they're actually doing another movie with him and with Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio in it, bringing the two worlds together, showing us the same universe. So I'll consider it a sequel. Revenge of the Nerds 3 and 4, Cars 2, sorry, Rocky, Back to the Future 3, Aquaman 2, and Quantum of Solace. I did not like Quantum of Solace.
Okay, it's fine for you to say, Tim, I forgot about that one. You're right. This one deserves to be on the list. Okay. Are you ready? We're talking about trilogies right now with Dune Part 2 as we're all awaiting Part 3, and will this become looked at as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, sci-fi trilogy of all time? It'll be a part of the discussion going into Part 3. What could have been one of the best trilogies of all time, especially in science fiction, could have been the latest Matt Reeves Planet of the Apes movies. And War for the Planet of the Apes deserves to be on this list. Because you want to talk about not sticking a landing, John. Me and you both walked out of that movie going, how in the world did they mess up the momentum of this series? And now they're going to try to heal it with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes this year.
Yes, that's a disappointing sequel. I'm not a big Planet of the Apes person to begin with, though. So it's not like, oh my God, I love Planet of the Apes. I didn't consider it because I don't really think of Planet of the Apes because it's not like Star Wars is a franchise. We all love Star Wars. Everybody loves some part of Star Wars. But then Rise of Skywalker is like, you didn't stick the landing. We don't like it. Fast and Furious, same thing. Like those are franchises I have affinity for. I don't really for Planet of the Apes. I did like the first and second ones, but
second one was great. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was awesome.
But the War for the Planet of the Apes, the biggest problem with it was just it was false marketing more than anything. That it wasn't the movie you were expecting to go in to see. It doesn't necessarily mean, oh boy, I hate this movie. It's just that's not what I was expecting. That's disappointing, as opposed to the movie's disappointing.
They literally had cutouts when you were walking towards the theater to watch it. Cutouts of apes on horseback and like the army, and they were going to fight, and it's going to be this battle in there and a standoff. You never get that scene in the movie. It never exists. They should have called this Prisoner of the War of the Planet of the Apes or something, because it is.
That's the one where Steve Zahn's a monkey. Like he's the one that's been isolated for like, I love Steve Zahn. He should not have been in that film.
The performances in this movie aren't bad, but they just completely derailed the entire momentum of the franchise. And what was promised to the audience and what you were going to get was an actual war movie, and you didn't. And I will never forgive the ending of that trilogy in what could have been the best trilogy of the past decade by far, and I hope Kingdom gets it right. Yeah. I'm looking forward to Kingdom still.
No Andy Serkis, correct?
No Andy Serkis this time around. New group is going to be coming in and trying to make this happen. So we will see if that is successful.